What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another conspiracy theory with your host, K-Mac Time. Today, we'll obviously be looking at the moon landing, looking at whether or not it was actually a hoax, whether or not it was real. I have some kind of cool evidence I want to show to you guys. I personally am kind of on the fence about this one. It could be real, it could be fake, who knows? I'd like to believe that it's real, but some of this evidence is just kind of, kind of hard to disprove. So it kind of makes you think. But I have a few main points. It's going to be kind of a quick theory, but I hope you guys enjoy. So let's jump right into it. First off is the biggest piece of evidence that everyone knows is that the flag was waving in the video on Apollo 11. Now, as you can see from this picture, and it was actually very, very clear as well on live television back on, I believe it was the 20th of June 1969. I could be wrong on the exact date, but anyway, it was broadcast on live television, and it could be very clearly seen on television as well that the flag was rippling, like it was blowing in the wind, which is all fine and dandy here on Earth, but on the moon there is no air. Therefore, there's no way that a flag could blow. There's no wind to blow it. There's no air. Therefore, there's no wind. Therefore, the flag could not be rippling. Now, of course, NASA has all kinds of ways around this, saying that the planting of the flag may have caused motion ripples in it, and the less gravity on the moon caused these ripples to last longer. I don't really know if I believe that, but that's what they say to cover it up. I don't know that, but it is clearly waving, so you guys can make your own conclusion on that. Now, the next evidence we're going to look at here is the lack of a blast crater from the actual lunar module itself. As you can see where it's highlighted there, it's circled, there is no crater. Now, if you're not familiar with how these things land, they have to use a thruster to push down so the thing doesn't just come barreling in and crash. There's actually a booster blowing, huge amounts of energy out the bottom to keep this thing stable, to keep this thing from just going into it, at to counteract the little amount of gravity there is on the moon from pulling it in and crashing. But as you can see, it looks like there's no it's not been touched in any kind of way, and even like the moon is supposedly covered in like this fine dust material. As you can see, none of that is like ruffled, none of that is like up in the air, none of that is. It looks like it's all been settled, and this thing had just landed minutes, maybe a couple hours earlier. There still should have been stuff floating. Maybe it looked like at least some kind of mark of where it was. The blaster had been blowing on it. Think about it like a helicopter taking off, and it blows things around because the downwards force. It's kind of like that, but or like a rocket blowing off from the Earth. It's doing the same thing, but it was just slowing it down in its descent rather than making its ascent faster. But again, that's up to you. All of this evidence. I don't want to point out anything that I don't want to put my own personal opinions in anything. I don't want you guys to draw your own conclusions. But we're going to go ahead and move on to the next piece of evidence, which is this photograph, which we move to here. Now, the important thing to note about this picture is the angle of the shadows. Because there's only one light source on the moon, that being the sun, it is fair to say that all shadows should run parallel because it's all coming from that same source. But as you can clearly see, the shadow on the top rock is moving to the right, when the closer rock is moving more towards the photographer himself, and that doesn't really make sense, thinking that there should only be one white source. It should be off in the distance, and the shadows should all run parallel. This photo right here tells me, this is either some kind of anomaly, or people suggest that it may be because this was taken on some kind of film set, that the whole thing was filmed in secret here on Earth by NASA. That is the actual theory of this, but this is what they point out, that the directional ways of the shadows could not be possible on the moon. Of course, NASA has addressed this. They said that it could have been reflecting off of mountains. It could have been reflecting off of other rocks nearby, but that's kind of a cheesy, hokey answer. It's kind of like a fuck you kind of answer. I don't really know if I believe that or not. But again, I'll leave that up to you. But we're going to move on to our next piece of evidence here, which is this picture we have here of an astronaut with what appears to be a reflection of something dangling. I know it's really, really hard to see. I know this photograph is really low quality, but if you zoom in, and I'm going to try and zoom in as far as I can for you guys on this, it looks like the thing on the top right of his visor is just either floating there or suspended in some way, maybe by a cable, maybe by something hanging from a ceiling, but it's definitely nothing that should be there. There should be nothing floating, just off and floating like that. And as you can see, right below that is an actual image of a time period stage light, which roughly kind of looks like what's in the reflection in his visor. So it could possibly be a reflection coming off of him. Theorists out there say that that is in fact a light that they forgot to cover up. They overlooked that, and it is reflected in his mask, and that is a stage light, and this whole thing was staged. Again, not the greatest piece of evidence because of the picture quality. I know, I'm sorry about that, but that's just what they're dealing with today. Back in 1969, cameras weren't what they are today. But that's just a piece of evidence right there I wanted to share with you guys. We're going to move on to the next piece of evidence here, which I consider to be a huge piece of evidence. As you can see from this actual picture taken from Apollo 11, there is not a single star in the sky. It is completely dark. Where are the stars? I don't understand. NASA claimed that they were washed out on the development. There was too much exposure, everything like that, and the cameras weren't that great back then. But why can we take pictures of stars here on Earth, but we can't take pictures of stars from the moon when they should be very, very much visible? There should be not that much light, especially when you're facing this direction away from the sun. There should be millions and millions of visible stars, and the theorists have theorized that NASA could not get the right sets of stars, that they were going to mess up the belts and all the recognizable star chains. Then the people were going to recognize that this was a fake because they could overlay an image of the actual stars in relation of where they should have been, because you can actually go back and calculate that to where they are in the picture. So they decided to go without stars and just say that they were quote-unquote washed out. But that's just what the theorists say. But anyway, moving on to our next piece of evidence, which is, of course, the infamous C-Rock picture, where you can see a perfectly symmetrical capital C on this rock, which almost never, ever, ever, ever happens in nature. There's almost never any symmetrical kind of things like this, especially a human alphabetical letter. That just doesn't happen. It could be, it could be an anomaly. It could be one in a quadrillion. But I'm not buying that personally. I feel like this is some kind of prop that is just supposed to be turned around. It's on the wrong side. The person setting it up simply forgot to turn this thing around. It is labeled, it is marked as C. Who knows what the C stands for? It could stand for anything, but it could stand for where the placement should be. They could be marked with letters and numbers to where they have to go, where the prop should go, all that kind of stuff. And it could have just been spun around the wrong way and been overlooked. But moving on to another piece of evidence, which I feel is another great piece of evidence here, which is, of course, this famous photograph, or should I say 2 photographs that are supposedly taken on Apollo 15 on separate occasions. These were supposed to be pictures that were supposed to be taken while doing an exploration mission up on the moon on Apollo 15. They're supposed to be at least, I believe they were supposed to be taken 10 miles apart or something along those lines, 10 kilometers. I don't know, they're supposed to be taken in different times in different places, but as you can see, they clearly match up perfectly. If you overlay them one on the other, those mountains in the background match up almost scarily perfect. 100% they match up, and that is basically what theorists have come to point out, that this is just a set in a movie that NASA was shooting, and they were just kind of fucking too lazy to change the backgrounds. To be honest with you, that's kind of a cheesy, stupid way to do it. If you're gonna lie to the whole world, I think you can splurge on getting an extra background moon dropping set. Just saying, NASA. But there's one last thing I want to touch on just while this is rolling. I know people are going to point out, there's one more thing I wanted to touch on, and that is the little gravity, or the lack thereof gravity, where they in the videos you see the astronauts experiencing what appears to be like, I believe it's 1/6 the Earth's gravity. I believe, could be wrong, but as you can see here, he's galloping along, kind of just looking like he's floating. And people say, well, how could they fake that? Well, that's very simple. There's supposedly suspended by a chain system and a pulley, and there's lots of evidence out there. That I could not find any good evidence, or I mean evidence, but I could not find any good videos of it that wasn't copyrighted protected. So I'm sorry I couldn't show that to you guys, but there are videos out there you guys can see. So make sure you guys are Googling them, and let me know what you guys think about this. Do you think they actually landed on the moon or not? I would love to hear you guys' opinion on this. But that's all the time we have time for this time. I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, guys, make sure you guys hit that like button. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button for more of these, along with my cartoon conspiracy theory videos. And as always, guys, have a great day and game the fuck on. Until next time, guys, peace out.